Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In some previous videos, I've decided to get into cowboy action shooting, and we kind of took it up from the beginning, and then I had one of my good acquaintances, Scott Rose, kind of help me and show me what a match was like and some of the equipment that I would need. In that video, we shot his firearms. Since the video we shot with my friend Scott Rose, I've actually purchased and picked up some of the firearms that I would like to begin with related to the pistols. Now, it's worth noting that you can obviously see once we start to demonstrate the firearms that they're not really a matched pair. Most people, I'm sure, would prefer that as they begin into cowboy action shooting, but hopefully along the way with this video series, I can give people some pointers with different frames, different sizes of guns, even made by the same manufacturer. So what I've done is decided to use the Ruger Vaquero and New Vaquero series. This one is chambered in .45 long Colt, which is also a decision I've made. Now, some of you at home might be wondering about that decision based on the cost of the ammunition. Well, I'm very blessed to have a pretty good source of inexpensive .45 long Colt, so for me that wasn't a factor. What was a bigger factor was I wanted to stay a little more authentic than perhaps choosing .357 and running .38s out of it. But more on that in a little bit. This, I was lucky to find, is an old Vaquero model, bigger and heavier than the redesigned New Vaquero. You'll notice this is a conventional frame, the non-Bisley. But I also have found a Bisley framed New Vaquero in .45 long Colt, and as we discussed, what I'm going to try to do is give the viewers at home my thoughts and impressions about whether I like the Bisley, whether it's worth going that way as compared to more of the conventional frames. So I don't know how that's all going to work out, but my thought process was if I choose maybe some different stuff, it'll be better information for those who maybe aren't sure about what type of pistols they should use to get started in cowboy action. Now, off camera a little bit here is also a Ruger. I chose Ruger because doing the research on them, one, they're affordable as much as firearms can be, and they're durable. These guns typically get shot a lot. Sometimes they're not very well cared for out of just overuse, and they seem to hold up quite well. Also, parts are available for them very readily. Now, that doesn't mean, as I said, I'm kind of a rookie at this, that other companies like Cimarron, Taylor, Pieta make bad firearms. It's just, to me, they seem a little bit more like functional art, and from looking at them carefully, at least to my untrained eye, seemed a little more delicate than the Ruger. And for the money, I'm just going to go and use a tried and true sort of platform. One of the odd things about this one is, compared to the other, which are factory, this one has actually previously been slicked up. I'm not sure that's a correct cowboy action term, but the action of the gun is incredibly smooth. The trigger press is incredibly light, and the transfer bar safety system on the pistol has been removed. That's an important thing to note. Obviously, as Scott talked about in our video prior, there are some very specific safety procedures that go on at cowboy action shooting, but when you're training by yourself, you do have to keep in mind, if you have a slicked up gun, that carrying it with all the cylinders full is more dangerous than leaving your gun in factory. I also made the conscious decision to start off mostly using the factory guns so people at home can have an idea about some of the challenges there are as compared to the slicked one, but I need the slicked one to be able to compare the two if you're following that bouncing ball. But the majority of my education, so to speak, will be with factory equipment. So that part of the equation is done. Very soon we'll move on to the rifle and the shotgun, probably in the same video, and I'll talk about why I picked those and the types that I did. But anyway, I'm going to try to give everybody at home, real briefly, my impression of running the guns, factory, in these setups in .45 long Colt. So, hang with me. The ammo I used for today's demonstration is from House of Payne, another Ohio company that uses veterans almost exclusively in the manufacture and sale of their product. We've known them for a little while. They're a good bunch of guys, and I'm sure you can find their stuff all over the web. I'm going to try to get into cowboy action and teach myself how to do this in what's called the gunfighter classification, where you use both pistols, first one and then the other, opposite hand. So it'll be boom, boom, like that. Now, one of the things I'm trying to figure out is what's the best method to cock the hammer, and whether or not the Bisley, with its altered frame and longer hammer, it makes that advantageous, which is why I'm using it in my right hand or my offhand. So here we go. Like I said, not for speed. And at some point, we'll talk about the holster I've selected for both of the guns as well. But we're going to operate on the target about, I don't know, maybe 5 yards away and see how it goes. Hopefully we'll do better than we did the first time. So I don't know if you noticed that, but not bringing your thumb over the top of the hammer, not good. So far, the Bisley is much easier to cock. By far. Oh, see? Still have a lot to learn. So, when I started, didn't game the drill. In fact, I haven't fired these guns since I worked with Scott, meaning I haven't fired a revolver. This is the first day I've actually shot these particular guns. Started off that in my left hand was a little choppy, but being left-handed, I figured it out right away. I thought in the beginning, perhaps that the Bisley was easier, and by the end I was messing that up too. So, what's required is a whole lot more practice, and way too early to determine which one I prefer. My lack of preference for the Bisley right now is it's in the right hand. I'll switch them and see if that continues. This is a Ruger, of course, as we mentioned. It is the one that has a much improved action, trigger press, and hammer cock. So what I'm going to try to do is give a slow walkthrough about how much easier the improved action is to cock over the factory. It's very unscientific, but let's see. Oh, wow. That's definitely... You can tell way, way easier, which, let's be honest, is why people do it. There's no question it will give you a competitive edge over one that's not altered. So, something to consider if you're into this for the win, so to speak. As I mentioned, this was a very sort of unscientific way to make some decisions, but I'm hoping that by getting a sort of an array of options available in the Ruger platform, that it'll kind of help people make some decisions as we go forward. One of the other things I forgot to mention earlier is I picked all of this equipment up used. For me, that just made the most sense. If you get sort of matching serial numbers or one-off serial numbers in a match set for Cowboy Action from Ruger, they can be as much as $1,500 a piece. I know that's MSRP, but it is a substantial purchase. I would say you're looking at more than $2,000 retail. A lot of money. If you're going to abuse the guns and use the guns a lot, it made more sense to me to pick up some that were gently used, which has been a little bit of the time delay, so I could kind of gather the equipment that I wanted used. Used is not a bad way to go, especially if you're in a gun store that uses or buys used firearms. You can examine them, and in most cases they'll let you fire them on their line for free if they happen to have a range, which is what I did at Buffalo Trading. These guns function well, they're as new, and I saw no reason to spend hundreds of dollars more for the new equipment. Now, having said all of that, another reason I chose Ruger is you really don't see a lot of other manufacturers' used firearms come into the store. You just don't. I used to work in sales, and typically what you see sold back to a gun store are Ruger Vaqueros. Not to say that it doesn't happen with other manufacturers, but it's rarer to the point where you might be a long time collecting the ones you want. And you're typically going to pay more for them because usually they're more expensive than the Ruger Vaquero line. So, just a couple of tips. Hope it's helpful. Got a lot to learn. I understand it's a little choppy with the way that I'm actually operating the guns, but what I'm hoping to do is create a video diary and show you some sessions and about how long it'll take very briefly to get to what would be considered a fair level of talent, which I don't even know what that is yet. So, I'm going to keep practicing. I haven't yet, and I'll try to keep a log about how long it takes to make any progress whatsoever. Next time we'll talk about holster, shotgun, and rifle. Thank you all for your viewership. We always enjoy the comments, and don't be afraid to like and subscribe.